Hi to everybody joining, and thank you. Peace to you, my friend, as well. To the person who's posted the peace sign. I'm outside the Ecuadorian Embassy, as you can see, in London. True Gemini, hello mate, greetings from Nottingham. Hello True Gemini, how are you doing, buddy? We are in London today. We're outside the Ecuadorian Embassy. And this is the scene of the crime from years ago, remember. For those of you joining, if you could tap the light screen, and that will attract more viewers, so thanks very much. I'm going to go live and do a report from outside Ecuador about the Ecuadorian Embassy, rather, because this is where Julian Assange was kidnapped years ago, just over 4 years ago, and ever since then he's been in Belmarsh prison. For those of you who don't know that are joining the chat, Julian Assange is a journalist and publisher who was holed up here in the embassy, which is, if I just show you here, if I come round, this entrance here, this is the back entrance to Harrods, and this is the Ecuadorian Embassy where Julian was arbitrarily detained, according to the United Nations, for well, 7.5 years, I think. So yeah, Jamie, you're right, it's literally next door to Harrods, mate. So yeah, this is it's just over 4 years. It's the 4-year anniversary since he was kidnapped by the Met and dragged and put in Belmarsh prison. Now, the reason, do you remember the Met? Do you remember the reason that they went into the prison? It's because of a jumping, they put him in prison was because of a jumping bail charge. Do you remember? Because apparently he was wanted, according to the BBC, for charges in Sweden to do with rape. There were never any charges, and there was never an accusation of rape. It was a sexual assault case that was being investigated by the Swedes, and was opened and closed more times than a fridge door, according to a diplomat from within the Ecuadorian Embassy, Fidel Neves. And this was used to, obviously, as a ruse, because Julian sought for asylum inside the embassy, because he feared onward extradition to the United States. Not extradition to Sweden, he feared extradition to the United States. And of course, when they dragged him out of his political asylum those 4 years ago, the Swedish investigation was closed, and nothing has been said in the media since. Isn't that weird? You're being told lies about Julian. Yeah, he was charged with, because he got word that the going to try and extradite him to Sweden, and then there was going to be this onward extradition, and the Swedes would extradite him straight to the United States, whereas the United Kingdom had some semblance, I suppose, of a justice system left. And he sought asylum inside the Ecuadorian Embassy anyway, because he was afraid of both of these things happening, and that's where he was for 7.5 years. And he said that all along that there was a sealed indictment against him, and that sealed indictment was unsealed the moment he was in the Met's custody. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? And what crime? What was his crime, actually, really? As it turns out, when they unsealed the indictment and piled all the extra charges on him, the crime is journalism. When the indictment is not based in fact whatsoever, it's based in complete lies and fabrications from a state that is absolutely hell-bent on destroying journalism, it seems. It's a disgrace, and he should be free, says Matt McGill. It really is. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. This is an assault on the Fourth Estate. This is an assault on the Second Amendment in America. This is an assault on democracy itself. Because without a free and fair press holding power to account, you don't have a democracy. You have the illusion of it. You have a plutocracy, an oligarchy, call it whatever you will, but it's not a democracy. And when you look at what's going on at the moment over in the New York Times and the drivel that's coming from it, it's you know, they're asking you to believe in fairy stories because of some leak that they've got from within the intelligence community. That's nowhere near the truth, and they're publishing it no matter what, because they know the gig is up if they continue, if they tell the truth of what is really going on. And of course the New York Times, and the Washington Post and all the other newspapers are against this man's extradition, and they all profited from his leaks, from his publications rather, not leaks, from his publications, because he didn't leak anything, he published it. They then threw him under the bus for 10, 12 years, where they tortured him for nearly a decade. So he's hilarious. So I want to talk, Emmy. Emmy, do you want to? I want to talk to you, if you don't mind. This is Emmy, everybody.
Hi
this
there.
is Emmy Butlin, and Emmy is you're the organiser of all
One
this
of the
stuff.
organisers of the committee to defend Julian Assange. Yes.
Now, tell me, what brings you out? Why is this so important to you? Because obviously I've explained this as much as I can. Let's hear it from somebody else's perspective. Why is this so important to you, and what made you get involved in this in the first place?
Well, the work of WikiLeaks is inspirational. It has literally changed my life. It was a wake-up call of how important it was, and it is, to put out truthful information in the public good at massive scale. I mean, Julian Assange, using his ingenuity, technical ingenuity, created WikiLeaks with a firm moral message. And I'm going to quote him, because I've got a little quote here from Julian. So we don't hear his voice very often. In an interview that he gave, he was asked why he was...
Hold on a second. Just hold on a second. There you go. Let's get you in focus so you can do... Go on then.
Yeah.
Go on.
So Julian Assange was asked in an interview, why was he doing all of this?
Yeah.
Why was he doing it? In particular, he was talking about the Iraq war logs, and he said, I hope it creates disincentives for engaging in immoral conduct in war, disincentives in engaging in war crimes in Iraq, in other places, and also that it gives the victims of war in Iraq a sense of justice, a better understanding of how war goes and how war can go wrong. Possibly the most valuable thing to come out of it. So here he's talking about his publishing work, a crusade for justice. And this is something very, very close to my heart. It immediately arrested my intellect with the information that was coming out and the education that I got out of it. It was also, and it is still primarily, a peaceful crusade. Julian Assange was never called into arms and all of that. You know, he was a very humanistic crusade, which appeals to me and appeals generally to all peaceful people in the society. The backlash of his publications also created a sense of empathy in me to try to assist someone who I applauded, whose work I applauded, and felt like I was egging them on, you know, because I'm there cheering. And then when he receives the backlash, I didn't feel I could turn my back. So I engaged, I activated politically, and together with others, as a group, started coming here at the Ecuadorian Embassy in the summer of 2012 to protest at his plight and show a simple sign of solidarity. And I never understood then that this would be a journey that would last more than a decade.
How could you?
No, it was just something so impossible. We kept thinking, oh, by Christmas he'll be free. His next birthday he'll be free. His next Christmas will be free. His next birthday will be free. And year after year, his plight became worse and worse. We saw British society turn its back. How expedient it was for the political world of this country. But when finally, in 2019, he was arrested, the mask fell.
That's true.
And
yeah.
the true face of the brutality of the US administration and the UK administration, who have allowed all of this suffering to take place, was revealed. And that gave the spark for an awful lot of people in this country and elsewhere in the world to start getting active in a mass scale. And so here we are now, all these years later, having yet one more achievement of Julian Assange, having forced societies around the world, political parties around the world, to take a position in defense of press freedom, in defense of publishing, and in defense of the public's right to know of what is being done, how they're being governed. And in particular, I would say, in those quarters of the state that relate to the military, to the intelligence services. Because if we wish to be truly democratic, society must have a say about these matters, including military,
because otherwise they don't know, they won't know what the truth is. And how can an uninformed electorate make a sane choice or a good decision about anything if they're not coming from a place that is actually truthful?
Absolutely. And this is how humanity progressed through the centuries of our existence on this planet. Only through education, only through knowledge and understanding. And we live in the information age. And it is a movement to free up information. If you like, for the public to own this information, to understand how the world works, and on the basis of that, have a political renaissance. Because we've seen ideologies come and go, and not always address the issues of today. So we need political ideologies to address the issues we face today. And that is why it's absolutely imperative that we understand how government works. We have an input in the decisions that are being made. And we develop ideologies and policies fit for purpose for the 21st century and beyond. It is a marvelous journey, and I encourage everyone to take part in defense of this man who is in Belmarsh prison, which will be our final stop today.
Yeah, and somebody just said he's a humanitarian, is what he is, and he's on our side.
Absolutely.
And the people who are going after him, they're really going after us, aren't they? And he's just in the way, and they need to get him out the way, because if they don't, then the gig is up for them, and then the people will actually have a true democracy again, because that's essentially what all this is about, isn't it?
Democracy is an ideal that we strive to reach, and every generation puts its own little stone towards where we want to go. You know, Julian Assange has done more than his fair share. He's one of us, truly one of us, who raised himself with his capability and determination to offer society something new and exciting. He has inspired people around the world. It's time we defend him, because he is one of us, and he's a human being like us, who is suffering.
He really is, and
he's suffering for his contribution to society.
I can't imagine what he's been through, Emmy. Thanks so much for everything you've done. You've become a really great friend of mine and somebody who I value and trust, and thank you so much for everything you've done. Yeah, thank you. Emmy Butlin, everybody. They love you, by the way. Let me flip the camera back. All right. Thanks so much, darling. Thank you.
I'm not having a speech today, but...
You're not doing a speech?
No, I'm not doing a speech today. I'll be there in between.
So who are the speeches here?
We're going to be Maxine, and Helen is going to read a beautiful article she wrote about the events. And at Westminster, we're going to have Dimmack and you. And in Belmarsh, it's going to be Joe.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Some fantastic. It's they're great people. They really are.
Everyone is great. I mean, this course is attracting the best, isn't it? The nicest people.
I've met them there, David. I really have. I've met the nicest people.
This is Monique. How are you? From Belgium. Do you remember me? We already met.
Monique from Belgium.
I'm still with your big Julian
Josiane Greggio.
This is for them.
Ladies, I'm live right now on TikTok, so if you want to say anything to the audience, then I will happily record you as you do it in front of the scene of the crime where he was kidnapped all those years ago.
And Jennifer Sunstead, who is also an author and they're going to the name
I will do very short, but yes, I will say something.
Everyone who ever wishes to speak,
Just ask.
no. We've got 3 locations, so if you want to speak to all 3, you can say something in all 3, doesn't matter.
I'm not sure because I'm a little shy, but I will.
All right, so yeah, there's people here from Belgium. Come on, JK. That's an old accusation. So the person in the chat who's saying he was a thief, not a journalist, he didn't steal anything. What did he steal? He was a journalist who published information that was leaked to him from within the army. That's journalism. That's what journalists are meant to do, and that's what editors are meant to do. He didn't thief. He didn't steal anything. Yeah, you're a victim of propaganda if you believe that. Unfortunately, JK, you believe the people who are trying to prosecute him and trying to kill him, plan to kidnap and kill him. You're believing those people. That's not smart. 100% journalist, says Greenwich Park Dodge. You're absolutely right. What crime did he do against the 2 girls in Sweden, says JK? Well, here's the thing. Neither of them accused him of the crime that everybody said that he committed. Neither of them did. There was a preliminary investigation into what the authorities considered to be a sexual assault, an allegation of sexual assault, when neither girl alleged that. By the intelligence services. It's because they want to go after him. You've got to understand that this is a nuclear superpower going after a journalist. This is a 2 superpowers in the UK and the US conspiring to go after a journalist. And not just that, Sweden as well and Ecuador. Niels Meltzer, the United Nations specialist on torture, said that this, in his statement, this was 4 states, 4 super states conspiring to torture psychologically a journalist for telling the truth. You've been the subject of propaganda if you think that Julian did anything untoward in Sweden. You really are. You're believing the propaganda that's being put out by the people who were proven who were suggested not long ago to be planning to kidnap and kill him under Pompeo. In the centre of London, this is. So yeah, unfortunately, JK, you're a bit of you've been misinformed, mate. You're a victim of propaganda and lies. If he didn't do anything, why hide for 12 years, says JK. Well, here's the point, JK. He always knew that this was onward extradition to the United States that was the thing. And he knew that he wouldn't get justice in the United States. He would be lost to the Supermax prison system. You know, Jeffrey, or do you think that Jeffrey Epstein really did do anyway? You see what I mean, right? So he knew that this was all a ruse to get him into custody under false pretenses, so he could be extradited to the United States because of this extradition treaty that the United States and the United Kingdom have got. Tony Blair, by the way. That's why. And he knew that he wouldn't get a fair trial in the United States, because the trial in the United States would be in the court in Virginia. You know where Virginia, right? Where Langley is, CIA headquarters. And there's no public interest defence that he could make in that court, which is sealed off and secret and made up of judge and jury from the area, who were all next door neighbours at best, direct family members, let's face it, of CIA employees. No, you know, nobody has ever made a successful case in that court against espionage. Which is in that, they call it the espionage court. So that's why he hid for 12 years, because he faced extradition to the United States under false charges. They want him for journalism, mate. They don't want him for anything he did wrong. And by the way, this is the United Kingdom. This is the United Kingdom, right, that has a 1 in 100 success record at catching rapists. All right? A 1 in 100. For every 100 of those sick acts that happen, only one faces justice. But they threw the weight they let them get away with it. But Julian Assange in another country, the full weight of the law came down over what was not an allegation of what they said. There were never any charges in Sweden. That was never. But that didn't stop the media from repeating the lies over and over, because they're not telling you the truth, JK. He poked the bear. No, he did journalism. This is how democracy is done, JK. Like Emmy just said, democracy is an ideology. And if you have the truth and 100% accurate evidence and truth, you can have a true democracy. Do you not want a democracy? Or do you want China and Russia? Do you want that state way of... Well, at least China have their people's best interests at heart. How can we say that? It's so, you know, you don't see the hypocrisy with supporting this. It goes against everything that you must find ideal, right? If the reporter can't report the truth or speak it, what chance do we have? There you go. You're cheering on and you're cheering on the persecution of a person whose only crime was to tell us the truth. That's it. They're not going after Julian Assange because of anything he did wrong. They're not. They're going after him because of everything that he did that was right and everything that he did that was correct. He's on your side. He wants you to know the truth about what our government's do in our names with our money. And right now, it's being, let's face it, up the wall. Certainly not going to the people in the Western countries who need it the most, with the crisis that we're in. Oh, you know, it's okay, JK. Thanks very much for your questions, by the way. Yeah, appreciate that. People should be angry. Yeah, they should. They should be angry about this. This is being done in our name. And this is not happening in North Korea or Iran or Russia, big bad Russia. This is happening in Western so-called democracies. And the precedent this sets it's frightening. It's frightening. Consider what the United States are doing here, right? Are saying he violated our secrecy laws by telling the truth about us. Therefore, we want to get him and put him away for 175 years. This sets a precedent on the world stage that is absolutely frightening. So what happens if China say to the United Kingdom, right, a journalist has published the truth about, let's say the Uyghurs, which I've seen no evidence, but let's say that. Let's say China say, right, we want extradition of that journalist to us for publishing that story about the Uyghurs and damaging our national security. Are we going to say yes then? No, of course not. So why are we saying yes to the United States, knowing that the precedent it sets on a world stage, because any country can do that then with any country? Where's our morality? Where's the moral high ground? We have none. Right now the United States is going around the world saying it defends democracy and freedom while actively attacking democracy and freedom at home by going after journalism in this way. It's going around the world saying we defend media freedom around the world, with this guy in Russia who's being charged with spying. We defend it around the world. How do you have any morality or come from any moral place of a moral place at all? You don't. You're criminalising and you're punishing and you're torturing psychologically the best journalist, let's face it, if you look at his track record, the world has ever seen. Nothing WikiLeaks have ever published, ever, has been proven to be false. Not a single thing. Which journalist can you say that about on the world stage? You can't. Not even the best of them. It's a 100% accuracy record. They have published over 1 million documents per year since their inception, up until he was kidnapped. Over 1 million on average, not just about America, but about every country, including, yes, Russia, and including Israel, and including China. Go to WikiLeaks and just type in the Israel files, or the Russia files, or the China files. You'll see documents that have been leaked through WikiLeaks and stories. He's brought down entire governments that were corrupt in Africa as a result of his brilliant journalism and his fantastic way of revolutionising journalism and bringing the journalism from the analogue age into the digital age, and doing it perfectly by creating a system that protects whistleblowers, protects them. You've got the New York Times and the Washington Post at the moment outing them with this Jack Texera stuff. They're going after him. That's not the job of a journalist, you idiots. You're meant to protect the whistleblowers. It's a fundamental of your job. Brentabot says the British people helped us back in the day to start the CIA. All right, we've got some speeches, guys. We're going to start. Okay, let's flip the camera and show you. Like the stream, everybody. We want as many people as possible to see this. And if you like the screen, more people will come. So please like the screen.
I'm going to ask you to just let you know about the itinerary. Very practical things, so there's no need to film at the moment. But we've gathered here today, obviously, to celebrate our ability to continue with this work and to mark the violent arrest of Julian Assange, which happened on the 11th of April 2019. Our events, our grassroots events, speakers from within our ranks step up and speak. We are open to everyone to express their views in a true grassroots spirit. We'd like to thank people who came on the actual day, Tuesday the 11th, here to mark the event. We chose to have our event on a Sunday to allow people who are working to join us. It is a 3 locations vigil. We start here, where Julian Assange was evicted, his political asylum terminated, and violently arrested. And then we're going to leave here at 12 o'clock via coach to go to Westminster Magistrates Court, where more speeches will be given. And then finally, we will leave there to go to Belmarsh Prison. So this is like a following in the footsteps of Julian Assange.
So this is Emmy's just Emmy's just outlining what's going to go on today. But I just want to address a couple of people in the chat who are saying big turnout and taking the piss out of only a few people turning up here. There's a reason that there isn't that many people here, and do you know what that is? Censorship. Your government and your media are censoring this, which is really important and is really important to your lives and your children's lives. Okay? So I understand that your instinct is to take the piss out of a small turnout like this, but there's a reason for it, and it's government censorship and it's media censorship, and you're taking the piss. It's against your best interests to be doing this, guys. Okay? So we'll go back to these speeches. Thanks, guys.
We have given and distributed many posters with the names of the releases: Cablegate, TTP-TISA, Syria Files, Iraq War Logs. This is to remind people the reason why Julian Assange is in Belmarsh Prison. It is his work. It is the publishing work of WikiLeaks. At the end of our event, we have a speech first by Maxine Walker. She's a member of the Committee to Defend Julian Assange. Will be followed by a speech from Helen Mercer, again another member of the Committee to Defend Julian Assange. And then at the end, before we go on to the coach, I will ask everyone to congregate underneath the iconic balcony where Julian Assange gave many of his speeches to the public, and have a group photograph. Without further ado, I'm going to hand over the microphone to Maxine Walker. Thank you very much, Maxine, for accepting to give us a speech today.
Well said, Amy, thank you.
Do you want to hold your microphone?
If you can't hear me, can you hear me? Because my voice is not very strong at the moment. Yes, we are here to mark a day of infamy when Julian...
Hold it closer, Maxine. Hold it closer. As close as you can.
Yes, we are here
That's
to
better.
mark a day of infamy when Julian Assange was illegally seized from this building by the Metropolitan Police. But for a minute I want to say why else we're here, which is we are here to salute the courage, the endurance of Julian Assange, who has withstood 13 years of loss of freedom, persecution, torture, isolation from his family, his children, his friends, judicial corruption, mobbing and slander. He has withstood all of this to defend our right to get the information we need in order to fight a system that is violent, rapacious, undemocratic and corrupt. Julian Assange, today and every day until you are free, we salute you. I want to start by talking about Macbeth, Shakespeare's great play, portraying the development of a tyrant. Like all tyrants throughout history and today, Macbeth established his power by slaughtering men, women and children. And at one point he says, "I am in blood, steeped in so far that should I wade no more, returning were as tedious as going over." Well, that strikes me as a fine motto for the USA, British and NATO rulers whose wars have killed millions and are adding to those millions every day and as we speak. They wade on through a sea of blood that they have created. But Macbeth said something else relevant for our time. He said, "There's not a one of them, but in this house I keep a servant feed." In other words, he had a spy in every house, a human spy in every house. And I think how he would have envied our current rulers, who have many spies in every house to spy on us. Indeed, there probably most of you, I think I'm almost the last person in the world not to have a mobile phone. Most of you will have the spy in your bag today or your pocket. But much more than that, it wasn't just that he had a spy in every house, and our rulers have many spies in every house. It was as if Macbeth's spy in the house spent 24 hours a day relentlessly telling you how delightful Macbeth was, how merciful and just he is, how he feeds the poor, and how he promotes democracy and never ever commits any crimes or murders, how his opponents, by contrast, are evil and merciless and must be dealt with, and similar stories. But now the stories, the lies, come from every news channel, every newspaper, many NGOs, social media, think tanks. Good Lord, the number of think tanks that are being paid for by the US or British states and other states. So, as well, we see social media control, we see politicians, useless, corrupt politicians, working hand in glove with the intelligence services here in Britain and in the USA and in all the NATO countries. And these torrents of words where they tell us how delightful they are and the rulers are and how terrible all opponents are, pour over us every day. I can no longer listen to it. I can no longer listen to any of it for longer than about 30 seconds. I just think, what lie are you going to tell me today? And we need to spread that consciousness. What lies are we being told today? And just as Julian Assange said so rightly, wars can be started with lies, as they were in Iraq, with the weapons of mass destruction, big lie. And millions have died as a result in the Middle East. The population clearly must be lied to relentlessly. And I often quote this, so I'm sorry if you've heard it before, Karl Rove, who was an official in the Bush administration during the Iraq War, derided what he called the reality-based community and said that's not the way the world works anymore. We're an empire now, and when we act, we create our own reality. Well, I'm proud to be part of the reality-based community that works with facts and works with accuracy and knows who the enemy is and can reiterate and point to every crime they have committed. And what is this created reality? Sorry, I have to cough occasionally. As war rages in Europe, that NATO's war in Ukraine...
Send him to prison for Iraq! He's a cross! A cross!
A journalist! She is in prison, you don't even know.
That NATO's war...
You want to live in your shack? They were torturing people.
You have been ill-informed, sir.
What have you yourself got to hide? Hey? Do you not want someone to grasp on you? Hey, go away!
Calm down, everyone.
You're cheering on the destruction.
Just calm down. Thank you. You're blocking the way, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
You're cheering.
Thank you. Have a nice day, sir. You have a nice day.
Sorry, Maxine, carry on. I do apologise.
It's not the first time, and it's not the last.
I'm very sorry. I'm sorry.
Moments in time where we hold an event like that, and a political agitator comes to throw the spanner in the works. We mustn't respond to that.
No. Can I just say, I don't think we should argue with idiots. I think we should show them our backsides.
I think we should have thanked him. I quite like a grass. Yeah, well, I like a grass. That's deliberate.
I'll go back to where Carl Rove is where we were.
Yes, please,
I'm moving on. I'm moving on.
Yeah, let's move on.
What is this created reality of Karl Rove's that we see today as war rages in Europe? That NATO's war in Ukraine, they say, is a defense of democracy. And they say Ukraine is winning. And they say it just suddenly came about with no prehistory, this sudden event in Ukraine, with no prehistory of NATO's provocative expansion up to Russia's borders. No US-backed coup in 2014, that never happened. We've all imagined, apparently, that we saw Victoria Nuland, Under Secretary of State in the USA, in Maidan Square handing out biscuits. I've got the photos. Apparently, we must not look at those. We're told that Zelensky, a former comedy actor, is a statesman, indeed close to being a saint, and that
Still is a comedy actor.
the forces of fascism in Ukraine are minimal and overestimated, that NATO is not involved in this war. It's simply supporting the war. Now, this is a nonsensical Karl Rove style narrative. That's what we have to listen to every day. And to question that nonsensical narrative, even to reveal the history of what the build-up to this war was, to reveal that is to invite attack. The rulers panic when occasionally a whistleblower, or much more rarely a journalist, punctures this fiction, punctures this narrative. Seymour Hersh, for instance, has told us in great detail how the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up by the USA with NATO allies. The counter-story, advanced in the ever-ready media, was that a few guys on a yacht blew up a major piece of infrastructure. And this lie is so weak, so absolutely baseless and weak, you just wonder if the lie factory had run out of lies that day, that was the story that they came up with. And now we have the 21-year-old alleged leaker of secret Pentagon documents who've shown that British special forces and other NATO countries' special forces have boots on the ground. This is a NATO war. It is a dangerous war, and it is a NATO-provoked war. And they also show that Ukraine, despite the millions and billions of pounds spent on armaments and sent to them, including depleted uranium shells from Britain, to leave a further toxic legacy behind them, as they did in Iraq, that the military position for Ukraine is much weaker than we have been led to believe. And what did the media do when they heard about this leak by the alleged leaker, 21 years old? They didn't really say very much about the leaks. They quickly leapt on to let's find the leaker. And they performed the job of the police and the FBI and the state in hunting down that leaker. That's what journalists do, apparently. For the mainstream media, they are the police. They are part of the state. And the New York Times was the chief hunter, along with Bellingcat, which is financed by the US state. We all know how, because we have seen and lived through it, how the media piled on obediently, printing lies and vicious attacks on Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. Julian Assange and WikiLeaks punctured the narrative, gave us some facts, exposed them, and exposed the scale and the inner workings of power for its gangsterism, its torture, its murder, its war crimes, and its spying. Stratfor, a massive private wing of the CIA, at the time of the leaks, suggested a strategy for dealing with Assange. And we know what they suggested because their emails were leaked and published by WikiLeaks. And what Stratfor said was pile on, move him from country to country to face various charges for the next 25 years, bankrupt him, ruin his life, give him 7 to 12 years for conspiracy. That was their strategy. And clearly that sentence was deemed inadequate, as it now stands at 175 years for espionage. But generally, this strategy is what we have seen play out with the addition of plans to assassinate Julian Assange. Over the past few years, we have seen a significant increase in people supporting Julian Assange, even here in Britain, and much more so internationally. But there is no let-up in the attack by the political, judicial and prison authorities. The appeal court has had his appeal since the end of August. One wonders what they are discussing. One wonders what their calculations are, because they've had enough time to embroider a judgment on a tapestry and hang it in the High Court. The scandals that have occurred in the judicial proceedings against Julian Assange are many, and I won't enumerate them. The scandals we've stood outside various places protesting those scandals. The scandals of the judicial system are matched by the scandals of isolation, in purposely imposed isolation and invisibility and ill health being imposed on Julian in Belmarsh prison. The scandal of recently Reporters Without Borders, who had arranged a visiting order, had it agreed. One of them travelled from France to visit Julian in Belmarsh, and they were turned away by the high hand of the governor. Even MPs were banned from visiting Julian, and they made, I have to say, very little fuss about that banning. Protest today, in the meantime, protest today is met throughout the world by violent repression. The so-called lethal weaponry that we've seen used in Paris and elsewhere in France has, in the last few years, killed and injured 121,000 people, and these will be major injuries. Our rulers have deemed that we should have no democracy and no rights, and that if we protest, which is rapidly becoming illegal in many places, then we will be met with repression. So we have lost that right. The voices of reality must be silenced by repression. But times, I think, are changing. I don't often say that because I am an inveterate pessimist. I think times are changing, and I think the veils are falling from the criminals that rule this world. Let us hope that the events on the streets of France and protests that are taking place all over the world are a sign of people rebelling against oppression, lack of democracy, austerity, and war. We urgently need change. This world and all its inhabitants need radical change. We can conclude when they ban legitimate forms of protest, when they persecute people who tell the truth and expose the truth. We can conclude, I certainly conclude, that even the achievement of democratic rights requires a revolution. I want to end by saying we salute Julian Assange. We salute the service that he has done for the public. And we say with one voice, free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Now!
Thank you for this tribute, Maxine.
Thank you, Maxine. Good words. Good words.
We continue. I invite Helen Mercer to come and take the microphone. Thank you.
Can you all hear me? Am I doing it right?
As close as you can.
Okay. Why are we here? We're here because we know certain things. We know that WikiLeaks exposed war crimes and the war criminals. We know that is why he is in jail. We know that over years and years he has been subjected to conditions which amount to psychological torture. In November 2019, Nils Meltzer and John Pilger and others visited him in Belmarsh, where we're going to later on today, and they expressed fears for his life. We know, living in Britain, that conditions in British prisons are dire. British prisons and British healthcare face chronic understaffing and lack of funds. And we know that the effects of the prison regime exact an increasing toll on Assange's health. We know that this, together with the threat of extradition to the United States and still worse conditions, are intended to serve as a warning to journalists across the world. We know that Assange's legal case has been fraught with unreasonable delay and the flouting of legal procedures. We know that the very validity of the extradition is put in question by the case going through the Spanish courts, that conversations between Assange and his lawyers were illicitly recorded by Spanish security company Usley Global and passed on to US intelligence. This violation of the principle of lawyer-client confidentiality could or should annul the extradition request. Where are we now? What do we know? On January the 4th, 2021, the magistrate, Vanessa Barreza, ruled that Assange should not be extradited on the grounds that the combination of his mental health and the conditions he would endure in an American supermax prison raised a real likelihood that faced with extradition to the US, he would take his own life. In December, a whole year later, 2021, Assange is still in prison. This was overturned by the High Court after the US appealed, giving belated assurances concerning his treatment in the US. The defence team appealed to the Supreme Court against this decision, and it was rejected last June 2022. On the 17th of June 2022, then Home Secretary Priti Patel approved his extradition. In August 2022, the defence team lodged a cross appeal from Vanessa Barreza's decision, which had accepted all the other US DOJ grounds for extradition. Since August 2022, when they lodged that cross appeal, nothing has progressed. Nothing. He remains in Belmarsh. We also know that in September 2021, Yahoo News reported on CIA plots to kill or kidnap Assange from this very embassy, from the Ecuadorian Embassy. And the discussions about this went to the highest levels of the Trump administration. Does this mean that the British authorities are content to place Assange in the hands of people who we know would like him dead? We know all this. Assange's journey over the past 13 years has been epic. It has been epic on the scale of the Greek heroes and faced with all the challenges and hurdles that they faced. But his story is no myth. His story is a grim reality, and the significance of our fight was never more urgent. I have always seen the campaign to free Assange as a significant and major part of the call for peace and a major and significant part of the peace movement. It's a call against war. It's a call against the hegemony of the United States, who want unrestricted rule so that nobody knows the secrets that go on, nobody knows the lies. Their unrestricted rule depends on keeping things secret. And there has never been a more dangerous period in post-war history. Those who know the truth of WikiLeaks, of Assange, of all the difficulties that he's faced, I believe that we cannot live with our consciences knowing the truth unless we take action to defend him. And that action is to defend justice, to defend him, and to ensure that the people's voice against war and the looming threat of fascism can be heard.
Free Julian Assange!
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 I invite a wonderful supporter who has travelled all the way from Belgium and is involved in the Committee to Free Julian Assange Belgium to join us and pass a message of solidarity to this event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hello everyone. So she already said everything I wanted to say. So I'm Monique, I'm from the Free Assange Belgium committee. So I'm here with my friend Josiane. And sorry, I'm not used to speak. So it was very important for us to be with you and here today, because for our committee everything started really on this terrible day when Julian was kidnapped, or I don't know how to qualify that terrible situation, from the embassy. So the committee already existed for a few months, but it's just after that day that we met, that we gathered in the streets of Brussels for the first time. What we have done since, every Monday. So every Monday we are in the street. During the lockdown we did online demonstrations. So for us it was fundamental to be here and to come to support all of you, fellow supporters, to say, of course, Julian, we are with you as long as necessary, not too long anymore, we hope. But that's all I wanted to say. I'm happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And our solidarity goes to the Committee to Free Assange Belgium and to all the international groups around the world. And there are so many, I'd be here sitting 20 minutes trying to remember the names of them all. Because there isn't a European country that doesn't have a group advocating the freedom of Julian Assange and fighting for the work that Julian Assange has done with WikiLeaks. Because this is why it's all about. Cablegate, agreements, trade agreements, DNC leaks, and above all, Iraq war logs, Afghanistan war diaries. This is the work of WikiLeaks that led Julian Assange to be violently arrested, his political asylum annulled by the administration of Lenin Moreno. By watching in great detail the events of this case, we become familiar with the reality of politics, how a publisher is persecuted, prosecuted, arrested violently, and thrown in a British prison where he remains for 4 years in a small cell, 3x2, in an institution that society has created, rightly or wrongly, to keep violent criminals. They criminalized publishing as if words are the most dangerous thing, as if words spoken, written, published, shared has become a crime. Against this terrible injustice, against the humanistic values that this society aspires to, we protest and we demand free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange!
Now, before we move on to take a group photograph around the balcony, we'd like to have an open mic. So whoever wishes to come up, step up and say a few words, we would like to hear them. So please feel free to step up. We'll have the opportunity, not now, later on outside Westminster Magistrates Court or at Belmarsh Prison. So, but please do if you feel like. Sophie, would you like to say a few words, please? And here's someone who's come all the way from France.
Hi, Sophie.
That's right. So now, when democracy is attacked everywhere in France, right the moment it's fire on the street, in everywhere. When we hear the thing, what's his name, Biden, saying journalism is not a crime because of this guy in Russia. He's really not ashamed, and it's crazy what's happened. So we have to open our eyes, support all together, and fight, and never stop to fight, never. So free Assange.
Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange! Now!
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry for my bad English.
This
We
is
live in interesting times. For people to have come from Belgium, from France, to come and join this event at this space, at this pavement, outside the Ecuadorian Embassy, is extremely important. 4 years after his violent eviction. And let's count the years since he actually entered the embassy. In 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, inside this building. And let's think of all the wonderful WikiLeaks work that he continued to publish from inside this tiny apartment, which is the Ecuadorian Embassy. As long as he had the political protection of a state, he continued with his work. And we are the beneficiaries of this work, and society at large. The reason he's in Belmarsh, the reason he's been silenced, is because this work is considered to be a danger. To whom, if I may ask?
To the corrupt
to them,
The criminals.
to the criminals.
Criminals do not like the truth.
Published words, spoken words, shared with the wider community about war crimes, people dying. The dead want their justice. Dead by British hands, by American hands. And it's very easy to turn one's back and not face the reality of what we do as a society. That we do not hold our governments to account. That they get away with murder. And that standing here today we recognize our responsibility as citizens to try to curb this military adventurism that our military, our intelligence services, with our tax money, is engaged in. So very grateful for everyone who's come today. Ginny would like to say a few words. Thank you. Ginny from the Committee for Julian Assange.
Bravo, thank you, Amy.
Hello everyone, lovely to see you all here. I'm not going to speak for very long. I want to, people are, hello everyone. Right, can you hear me? Okay. People are saying 4 years. It is 4 years since Julian Assange was violently dragged and illegally from the building behind us. That's 4,165 days today. That's 4,165 days today, and counting. Julian Assange said, we must all fight for ourselves, for each other, for our democracy. And the way to do that is through knowledge. And the only way we can get knowledge is through an active, responsible media. We don't have, in the mainstream media, an active, responsible media. WikiLeaks provided that. And on social media now, obviously there's a great deal of discussion and truth being reported. And that's where we need to go. But we must also remember and honor and fight for Julian Assange and also all the other journalists who are, like Daniel Hale, for example, or other activists, the people from Bristol, the exiled people from Bristol who are now imprisoned, facing between them 100 years of custodial sentencing. So this is a very, very serious moment for all of us to know, to defend Julian Assange, to defend WikiLeaks, to defend our right to know. And I'll end by saying what he said as he was being dragged out. Resist, resist, resist.
Bravo.
Free Julian Assange!
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 Free Julian Assange! Now! Amy, I have some words in a paper.
Thank you. Shall we do them outside Westminster Magistrates Court, because we'll have speeches
My
there?
darling, can I, this is for that Lenin Moreno.
Okay, what's the time now?
Lenin Moreno.
40, we've got 20 minutes. We need at least... I haven't got the call yet.
Okay, that's fine.
I can read it.
All right. Elsa's going to talk, everybody. Let me just flip the camera again.
This week, on the 11th of April, 4 years ago, Julian Assange was kidnapped by the British police from the Embassy of Ecuador and put him in the Belmarsh prison, the worst prison in the United Kingdom. We demand a thorough, independent and international investigation, accountability and punishment according to the rule of law for the criminal and corrupt ex-president of Ecuador, Lenin Moreno, for the criminal and corrupt Ecuadorian ambassador in London, Jaime Marchand. Lenin Moreno and Jaime Marchand sold the greatest journalist and publisher, Julian Assange, for $2.5 billion to get a loan from the IMF. Lenin Moreno and Marchand broke the Ecuadorian constitution. They are traitors of the Ecuadorian people. Lenin Moreno and Marchand violate the Julian Assange, violated the sacred right of asylum given to Julian Assange by the courageous ex-president of Ecuador, Rafael Correa. Thank you, Rafael Correa. The corrupt Lenín Moreno and Jaime Marchand colluded with the corrupt David Morales, the boss of UC Global, which is a Spanish security company. Lenín Moreno, Jaime Marchand, David Morales colluded with the criminal organization CIA, which were under the administration of the criminal Mike Pompeo. The CIA and the Mike Pompeo administration planned to kidnap, poison, assassinate Julian Assange while he was in the embassy of Ecuador. UC Global and CIA spied on Julian Assange 24/7, spied his meetings with his legal team, his family, friend visits, his doctor's visits. The CIA stole Julian Assange's personal and official papers. The CIA stole from Julian Assange his personal computer. The corrupt Lenín Moreno and the corrupt Jaime Marchand used character assassination, calumnias, defamation, and lies against Julian Assange as an excuse to justify in the eyes of the public why Moreno and Marchand were going to take away the sacred right of asylum of Julian Assange given by ex-President Rafael Correa. And Lenín Moreno and Jaime Marchand opened the doors of the Embassy of Ecuador on the 11th of April 2019. So the corrupt British police dragged Julian by force out of the embassy. He was kidnapped by the police, took Julian Assange to a corrupt judge called Snow. And this judge sent Julian to the most horrific and medieval prison. This prison is called Belmarsh, which is near London. Julian Assange has been abused, psychologically tortured, in that horrific prison. His human rights has been grossly violated. The criminal and corrupt US administration colluded with its allies, subservience, the United Kingdom government, Swedish government, Ecuadorian government, to brutally and illegally persecute Julian Assange for doing real journalism, for creating the Dropbox, for bringing us the truth, and the public has the right to know. Free Julian Assange now!
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 All right, everybody. So that is the end of the speeches that are going to be held here at the Ecuadorian Embassy. We're now going to travel up to the Westminster Magistrates Court, where the speech is going to be going to happen there, because obviously this is where all the court cases have been taking place. I'm going to speak at that event as well. So yeah, join me in an hour or two. But Elsa's going to say something in Spanish for the international friends.
All around the world,
and here we go.
The Spanish-speaking countries that are standing up for Julian Assange. And not only the Spanish speaking, but the Portuguese as
Ciao.
well,
You got a
who
charger?
throughout Latin America have shown a tremendous solidarity with Julian Assange all the way up to their presidents. So here you go, Elsa.
Aquí estamos al frente de la Embajada de Ecuador en Londres, donde el expresidente Lenín Moreno y el embajador Jaime Marchán sold Julian Assange for $2.5 billion para conseguir un préstamo del International Monetary Foundation. Preguntamos y les pedimos con todo el corazón a todas las personas de todos los países que hablamos español, y somos muchos, y sabemos que lo que están haciendo con Julian Assange, el periodista y publicista más grande de este tiempo, lo pueden hacer con cualquiera de nosotros. Los Estados Unidos, el Reino Unido, la CIA, ellos quieren intimidar a todos los periodistas en el mundo. Ellos quieren intimidar a las personas en el mundo que dicen la verdad. Pero recuerden que Julian Assange, su coraje es contagioso, y nosotros vamos a pelear hasta que Julian Assange esté libre, porque cuando Julian Assange está libre, la verdad está libre. La libertad de prensa y nuestro derecho a conocer la verdad. Debemos luchar. Les pedimos, porque esto es por el futuro de nuestros hijos y nuestras nuevas generaciones. Levanten su voz, levántense para proteger, defender a Julian Assange, defender la verdad y defender el derecho que tenemos de conocer la verdad. ¿Qué están haciendo los gobiernos en nombre de nosotros? Liberemos a Julian Assange ahora. Tomen acción, pueblos del mundo, tomen acción, porque esto es para liberarnos nosotros mismos y liberar a nuestros hijos y nuestras nuevas generaciones. Si los corruptos de Estados Unidos, del Reino Unido, la CIA, se llevan a Julian Assange, el periodismo está terminado. La verdad no volverá a ser escuchada. Necesitamos la libertad de Julian Assange para hacer el camino para la verdad y para que vengan nuevos periodistas que nos traigan la verdad de los hechos, sin tener miedo, sin ser perseguidos, sin ser asesinados. Liberemos a Julian Assange para liberarnos nosotros mismos y para liberar a nuestros hijos y a nuestras nuevas generaciones. Los opresores son pocos. Nosotros, el público, somos millones y millones. Levántense, levanten su voz por lo que es correcto, por la verdad, por la libertad de Julian Assange. Gracias.
Gracias. Thank you, Elsa. Thank you. Free Julian Assange!
Free Julian Assange! Free Julian Assange!
All right, perfect. So we're going to move on to the court now, do photos. I'll be live again from there. To the person in the chat, by the way, who's just said, nothing says you come prepared, like have you got a charger? Hey, listen, do you want slick or do you want the truth? Because that's what this is, it's the truth. All right, I'll see you in an hour or two, guys. We'll be outside the court.
The reaction of freedom-loving people around the world, and we must never forget, we are a few here, but we are millions around the world in support of a free press. and demanding the freedom of Julian Assange. Thank you all for participating. We're going to have a group photograph now. So we will first of all remove our banner so we can hold it in front. And
yeah, to the guy in the chat who's just said nobody wants to hear this here, hence the turnout. That's not because nobody wants to hear this, mate. There were 500 people watching this at one stage or something. The reason is censorship, buddy. You're cheering on the censorship of the state here, Orpington Dad. You're actually going against the best wishes and the best intentions of your own family and your own children, if you have got children, you know, by actually making fun of this, because this is the fourth estate. This is your democracy that's at stake here. These people are really telling you the truth. The BBC are telling you falsehoods, and they've got the reach. They don't get censored at all. These people get censored. You know, that's the reason why there's a small turnout here. If people knew the truth, they would be out in force, as they were when 5,000 linked arms around Parliament, despite the fact that there was a rail strike that day. People really do care, mate. It's not about the turnout here. It's not because people don't care. It's because of censorship. And I hope you understand that. All right. Oh, stop grandstanding that. It's in hat nonsense, he says. Okay, so you're obviously a contrarian and a troll. So we'll mute you now. I tried to be. We won't, you know, you'll be talking to yourself. So there you go. I'm not pro-censorship, but come on. You can talk to yourself about it. I tried to be honest. All right, I'll see you in an hour or two, everybody. Take care.